Hello and welcome to the Dublin Arsenal podcast. I'm your host, as always, Jonathan Giles. On this week's show, we'll be reviewing a 3-1 home success against Manchester United in the Premier League in the company of BBC Match of the Day commentator and Premier League production commentator Conor McNamara. How are you, Conor?
Great, very good. Fresh from the Emirates, which I thought was resplendent on Sunday in the sunshine. I was actually trying to work out how old the stadium was. It just still feels brand new when you go in there. So a very happy place.
Yeah, it's getting happier by the week, Conor. Every time we pick up a home victory, it seems to be just growing and growing. So it's great to see. Yeah, so sit back and enjoy the show. I'm also joined on the show, as always, by my regular guests. You don't know who you're going to get. So, Eamonn, who are you this week?
Evening, Jonathan. Evening, Conor. Just watching a bit of Reeling in the Years there. Bit of Gilbert O'Sullivan. The thing about his songs is nothing rhymes there, Jonathan. Nothing rhymes. No, good evening, all. I was also at the Emirates on Sunday, Conor, and since we last met, the Limerick reporters and Dublin footballers both did the business, so we're all good, we're okay.
We're all happy.
I don't know. Conor probably didn't hear last week's show, but Eamonn done a great rendition of "More Than a Woman." So we might get.
Johnny in on that, but that's good to hear. Yeah. Might sing the Cranberries. Everybody is. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever lightens the mood on the show, you're more than welcome. Yeah, I suppose we'll crack on into the show. As always, we begin with the review from Sunday's game, 3-1 against Manchester United. A cracking game, all in, I really have to say. Marcus Rashford got the first goal after 27 minutes. Martin Odegaard with a quick reply a minute later on 28. And then Declan Rice, 7 minutes into injury time, with a cracking goal, and he's really fitting in well to the Arsenal faithful. You could see what this, after the celebration, what it means to play for Arsenal. He's only in the door. It's like he's been there nearly all his career, so it's great to see. And great to see Gabriel Jesus score as well on his comeback. Really well taken goal. Diego Dallo sitting him down on his arse and tucking the ball in. But I thought United gave us a good whack as well. Their counter-attacking was really impressive. Their Garnacho goal, VAR, it works in our favour again, but you mightn't always get it that way. But I'll come to you, Conor. What did you make of the match on Sunday yourself?
Yeah, I thought it was a statement. I think it's exactly the sort of moment Arsenal needed. I think there was an awful lot of praise for Declan Rice at the end, and I don't want to sound unfair to the guy, but genuinely, if Garnacho's goal stands, if United win that game, I don't think everyone's talking about this amazing Declan Rice performance, that, how did he not win the game? And that's why, and I mean that I'm not being sort of mean to him saying that. What it is that his goal put the golden tint on everything. That goal statement arrived, suddenly brilliant performance. Everyone's saying how incredibly well he played. Not, he made no mistakes. I just thought he was neat, tidy, did his bit. Whereas because of the goal and the hero worship celebration, which is all, thoroughly deserved, now it's the Declan Rice team and he's running the show and he's the main man and all the rest of it. And it's brilliant. And, the fact that Odegaard was able to chip in for the goal as well, it's not like he's been overshadowed or anything like that. But now, Rice can say that he's the quarterback there in the midfield. So from that point of view, huge statement for the team, for that player in particular. And yeah, I think crushing for Manchester United, who if they had won, they would say, right, we're banging the title race now. Whereas instead it's all, Sancho's leaving and the coach is falling out with players, and they've lost to Spurs, they've lost to Arsenal, they're clearly not title contenders, all that kind of thing. So the rails appear to be falling off very early for them, and that's just what makes it all the more important for Arsenal. So I just think to win titles, that's the sort of game you have to find a way somehow to get that over the line and win, and they did. And I think it'll do their confidence the world of good. Going into the international break as well, they're all going to be so happy for the next fortnight. Yeah,
you could say, I know in the post-match, Conor, Declan Rice was saying that the win meant so much more. With Manchester City winning their opening 4 games, it's important to keep on their coattails. Another one, Kai Havertz seems to be getting a lot of stick from, he's only 4 games into his Arsenal career and he had such a bad, let's call it a really bad spell at Chelsea. I don't think we saw the best of them there. What do you make of that sign? Do you think it's fair? It's a bit harsh the Arsenal fans getting on top of him so early in his Arsenal career.
I don't know. Kai Havertz has always been an unusual one for me. I don't really know what his position is, and I was surprised when he went to Chelsea and they played him as a centre forward. And I thought, what I had seen of him in Germany, that he was sort of, a number 10 role or even a number 8. He was kind of behind, and I've always wondered, I guess the reason was that Chelsea don't have a proper number 9, so that's why they were playing him there. Yeah. And then he comes in, and from what I can make, he's sort of been playing where Granit Xhaka was last season. And I don't think he's that kind of player either. So look, Mikel Arteta's not silly. He's got some process in there. He's got some grand plan. At the moment, I'm not quite seeing it. And it's going to be interesting to see where it does settle down and where he does fit into the team. And, he's got all the talent in the world. I like the way he carries himself. I like he's not sort of a hothead. You never see him screaming at referees. He's kind of a quiet, kind of concentrating on what he's doing kind of guy. It'll be interesting to see. I think, I don't think it was a penalty the time he got into the penalty area, but that's the sort of position you want him getting into, arriving in the box. And I don't think we've seen enough of that so far. So I definitely think it's too early to judge him. But the fact, Arteta's got choices. The fact that he's choosing to play him, the likes of Smith Rowe not getting a sniff at the moment, I think you got to trust the manager on this one for now.
Yeah, it came as a shock to all Arsenal fans when he was actually signed, because there was no hint of him even coming at the end of last season. And, I think he's probably even wondering what position is he himself. I think they're trying to find the ideal position for him. I know, Eamonn, you were at the match with a lot of the Dublin Arsenal supporters club. From your seat, and you would have said a lot more than what we do on telly. What did you make of the performance on Sunday?
Well, I actually thought the game said more about Manchester United than it did about us. And I'll tell you why. It was the most unadventurous Manchester United team I've ever seen. I mean, when Manchester United had bad teams in the 1970s, they were attack, and suffered a little bit because of that. But they had no adventure. The only player that could hurt us was Rashford. And we're going to have to accept about Marcus Rashford at the Arsenal, that he's going to become a Robbie Fowler, a Harry Kane, a Wayne Rooney, somebody who just give him the goal before we start. And look, I mean, we know what's going to happen. But he was the only player that caused us a threat. So they were very unadventurous and didn't try and win the game. And that to me, I won't say it disappoints me. If I was a neutral, I'd say you'd be disappointed with that, right? And I thought that the game spoke more about the state they're in than we're in. Okay. The first thing I'd like to say is that, and I've been on the show for the last couple of weeks, and I've been saying, whatever way we were doing this inversion stuff, that we were getting the ball to Saka the whole time quickly, and we were not getting the ball to Martinelli, right? This week, we got the ball to Martinelli early and often, and it paid off. And I think that was a tactic, because United had Saka wrapped up, and we went to Martinelli from the get-go, from the very, very tip-off. We went to Martinelli. I think he won about 7 or 8 corners, Conor, right? It's very hard to get around Wan-Bissaka because he's quick, but his involvement in the Odegaard equaliser was just simply superb. The weight he put on the pass for Odegaard, it was like ground hurling. Just put that in, Pat. It's okay. There's so much weight on that ball that Odegaard just had to guide it in, and I was directly behind that goal. So that's the first thing I'd say. That's the first time we got Martinelli into the game this season early. And I think if you're going to try and break down teams, you've got to be able to get both sides of the pitch exposed early if you can, right? The second thing I'd say is I had a look at this inversion thing involving Zinchenko. So I was directly behind the goal. So I actually drew a mental vertical line looking at the game. And I wanted to see how often did Zinchenko cross that line. Zinchenko spent half his time on the right-hand side of the pitch, right? But he does it different than Thomas Partey. He knows how to do it. He knows the spaces to go into. Thomas Partey, when we tried that was Thomas Partey. When Thomas Partey inverts, Thomas goes into his normal, natural holding midfielder role. Zinchenko doesn't do that. He goes into spaces down in alleyways that Thomas can't do. And I really watched that with interest. And I think that was an improvement. I would say with Declan, I would say that he still doesn't give you what Thomas Partey gives you in that anchor role, in that Declan can't take the ball on the half turn. And I've said that before. You know, he's not afraid to receive the ball. He's very brave. But when he receives the ball, it's not on the half turn, a la Cesc Fabregas. It's kind of still facing his own way. And that just takes a little bit longer. But he brings you a lot of other things. And I agree with what Conor said. All of this, Declan Rice has arrived, blah, blah, blah. Declan Rice had a really good 7 out of 10 game. He's had 4 good 7 out of 10 games. He was neat and tidy. But the one thing I love about him is that when he's facing the game, he sees danger very early. And I really, really like that about him. And I think he's probably the best in the business at that in the Premier League. So, you know, but the Havertz thing, don't forget, like, Havertz was part of getting the ball to Martinelli early as well. Havertz has only grown into that position. Maybe he's not suited to where Granit Xhaka played. We've got a different configuration of players. He'll find his feet. He's a good player with a good temperament. But he was part of getting the ball to Martinelli. And I just thought, from behind the goal where I was, that we were attacking in the first half down the clock end, the feed out to Martinelli was quick, and it put United under an awful lot of pressure. I was delighted to see that Ramsdale hasn't been affected by anything. You know, he got mugged for a goal against Fulham last week. Didn't matter. He kept going out, doing what the manager wanted him to do, playing in that position, available for the ball, and all of that. So I think it was good. Then you get onto the decisions, and it's funny that Conor said that he didn't think it was a penalty. Neither did I. But you see, here's my problem with VAR. The referee did. And when you look at it again, it might have been, it might not have been. Is it a clear and obvious error? I don't think it is. I think the referee saw what he saw. That's not a clear and obvious error, in my view. I think the penalty from that point of view should have stood. Had the penalty stood and we'd scored, as the other Johnny Joe says, no chance, games, Bill. And they do. So the Garnacho goal mightn't have happened had the penalty been given. But the Garnacho goal happened. And by the way, it was Declan Rice who gave the ball away originally. The Garnacho goal happened because we were trying to win the game. And they weren't. We were trying to push on. It was a very, 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 very tight decision. And if you look at it again, I don't know whether Gabriel meant it or whether he just got stuck to the ground. But whatever he did, it was ballroom dancing stuff, because he just literally stopped his body just on time to get that line. We got the goal at the end, and I think everybody can talk about the togetherness of the team when you win dramatically like that. So we're all together when we win like that. But I think what was telling was that we knew we had to win the game, and we went after it, and we got a bit lucky to win it. We were the better team, deserved to win the game, but the way it came about, when you have Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans as a centre-back partnership, you know, in this day and age, and no disrespect, Johnny Evans is actually a really, really good centre-back. But but he is. But
it's his age is behind, is against.
And he knows how to put his foot in, and he's a very, very good centre-back. But he left them 8 years ago. You know?
Yeah.
So I think they got a bit tired. How Rice was left with the space he was left with from that corner, I'd never know. But look, I thought Reece Nelson, he was only on for a couple of minutes. We spoke about Reece the last time. Yeah, you were on, Conor. He was only on for a couple of minutes, but he did about 3 or 4 really good things.
Right. Yeah.
I think Fabio Vieira as well quickened the thing up.
Yeah.
You know, and the last thing I'll say is that we've had a patchy start, really patchy start, and we've 10 points from a patchy start. Tottenham have had a great start. Liverpool have had a great start. West Ham have a great start. They've got 10 points as well. Chelsea have had a patchy start. They got 4 points. Man United have a patchy start. They got 6 points. So I just think going into the international break, we've been really, really patchy. I think Arteta, and I won't call it arrogance, but I'd call it calculated risk. Probably tried to have a look at a few different things in games that we should have won. You know, and I think after the international break, it's season on, and you know the difference between being 2 points behind Man City and being 4 points behind is huge. It's absolutely huge.
Yeah,
That's my view.
You could see with that. I think this stage last season, we'd won our opening 5 games, and it was City doing the catch chasing, you know. And I think we set the bar already so high last season. Teams are out to get us now, you know. And I just want to come to you, Conor. We were talking last week, yourself and Eamonn. What have you made it the starts of to the start of the season for Eddie Nketiah and Fabio Vieira? Vieira looks like the type of player that he wants to get in the starting 11 now, doesn't he? When he comes on, he's making things happen.
Yeah. And he needs to know, I think, as well. You know, you get a sort of bedding in period. You know, I think some players come in, they instantly become part of the whole setup. I mean, I'm pretty. You guys know more than me. I don't think, you know, he just hasn't started many games, has he, for the club since he's arrived. So it's kind of you get to see him in cameos and whatnot. Yeah, but he's clearly talented. He's still kind of young. I think Eamonn made a good point about, you know, the impact that he and Reece Nelson made at the end. I think Arteta's substitutions just seem sharper, and you know, Højlund came on and he's new, and there was a bit of excitement about that. And to be fair, he actually had a few good touches for Man United.
Yeah.
Not sort of dreadful or anything, but I just thought the players that came on gave that new energy. It was the second wind that in a game like that, which you've 2 tiring teams on a really hot day. And I had to do some stuff down on the pitch before the game with the foreign broadcasters, and it was so hot down there. I mean, he's up the stand, there was a bit of breeze, it was baking. So yeah, the impact he made. I mean, Eamonn said there about the how uninspiring or kind of unambitious Manchester United were, and I thought that. But do you know what I thought? The sort of different slant. I think they weren't. Arsenal prevented them from having it. You know, Onana loves to play with his feet and come out and give it, you know, to Casemiro or give it to Eriksen, you know, midway inside his own half. Yeah. And time again, Arsenal were cutting off that sort of pass. Yeah. So instead, he'd give it short to Lisandro Martinez, or to give it, you know, to Wan-Bissaka or Dalot or whatever, and they were penned in. And Nketiah is so good at that, and he doesn't get the praise for that work. The work that he puts in, hounding these guys, and just, they cannot settle because they can't see him. Where is he? He's going to come around the back in a minute, or, you know, he's very, very good at that. And I think, you know, Saka and Martinelli are stylish players in what they do, but Nketiah does that. Very much reminds me of Ian Wright, that kind of hunger of you know, Jamie Vardy does it very well. So the lack of ambition for Manchester United, I think, was imposed upon them, rather than, I don't think Ten Hag went there saying, right, we're going to sit deep and we're going to absorb Arsenal. He was really frustrated that they couldn't get out. And then you saw occasionally they were launching it long towards Anthony, and time again it didn't. I think it was once that they actually picked him out. So Manchester United were unambitious, but they weren't able to. And I think, but when it came to that needing extra energy late, look, it was close. You know, the Garnacho by a couple of inches is different. If they do score, it's game over and they don't win it. Yeah. I mean, and just one word on the Johnny Evans as well. I mean, obviously, as you've said, 8 years since he played for Manchester United, but he hasn't even played for Leicester this season. You know, he hasn't played any of their championship games, so that was you know, a big ask to throw him into that game. And this wouldn't have been the plan, but he's in there alongside Harry Maguire, who hasn't played either, and you think, jeepers, you know, that really is going to be carved open, and you know, in the end it was. But I love the Gabriel Jesus goal, the way, because for me he's a number 9, and at City he played a lot wide, and he's got that talent to play anywhere across the attack. But I love him playing number 9, and yeah, I really enjoyed his goal. Fabio
Vieira's ball into him. What a pass into him as well. You know, that has to be said. He just, when he got the ball.
But Jonathan, on that, it's not about the accuracy of the pass. It's about the timing of it. Because
and the movement,
if he delays that for half a second, it's offside.
Yeah,
he got the timing of it absolutely spot on, you know.
But also the ambition of it. He could have cut off the corner flag. He could have said, "I'm going to hold the ball up here." Where, you know, the fact, oh, come on, we'll nick another one here. Brilliant. Yeah.
Well, it was interesting as well. I was watching that match today as well on Sunday. They done a piece how much Anthony was free on the wing so much in the first, second half, and Martinez and Lindelof completely ignored him when he was. You could see there was something there, you know. And the minute he went off, your man Højlund caused Gabriel. That was a 50-50 penalty decision as well. you know, there was a tug on him. You know, he's a strong lad, that United striker, isn't he, Conor?
No, I've seen, so I kind of long story, but I tend to commentate randomly on a lot of the Danish games. I do the World Feud for Denmark and Croatia, and those teams have kind of been the ones that I've done the last year. So I've seen them a lot. Right. So he came onto the scene last March. He's, young kid, but he comes in and he scored 5 goals in 2 games. He got a hat trick against, I'm going to say Finland. Was it Kazakhstan? That's right.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's what. Yeah, I remember. I actually put up a thing on Twitter. Arsenal sign him up. He obviously didn't see that.
Brilliant. Obviously, it kind of sounds like Haaland and everybody has the blonde hair, and he's, but he does look the business, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of him playing for Manchester United, and I think he is ready. Sometimes the kid doesn't look quite, he's a bit like Evan Ferguson. He looks ready to on the battle, which is great to see. But say again.
Just on that, Conor, I was looking at from the clock end, and so United were attacking our end. Yeah. Gabriel tried to wrestle him a couple of times. Gabriel's a strong boy, but the Highland came out the better of it, he's a very, very strong boy. And just on the point about Anthony, Rashford on one side and Anthony on the other side were there on their own a lot of times because Arsenal decided to defend narrow, right? And the reason why we decided to defend narrow, if you go back to the game at Old Trafford on the very same weekend last year, right? We were cut down the middle on their counter-attack. So we decided, let them have it on the wing. Now, that ultimately was a mistake for the first goal, but for the rest of the game, it was grand because anytime Rashford and Anthony got the ball, they were coming into traffic. So there was no kind of channels through. And we made it. I was actually talking to a guy beside me. So where did even, Anthony and Rashford? I said, well, if you go out and shadow that, you're going to leave gaps where they need them. So, I think that was a conscious decision. But that boy, he looks like a player. He looks like a player. So I think he'd be a very good sign for him,
Yeah. And with that victory, we're on 10 points too behind Man City, who've really started the season off well, even with Guardiola missing from the sideline. They still seem to conjure it up, and it looks like Haaland is already pouring already. You could see against Fulham. He's starting to get the taste of it now, like last season, which is worrying for the rest of the league. In terms of us, our next game is against Everton on the 17th now, due to our Champions League involvement now. That's a Sunday kick-off. Then it's the North London Derby, which will be a tasty one because Postecoglou has them really playing well. Spurs, they seem to look a lot fitter, and all of them seem to be going with what he's saying. There seems to be actually a plan in place for Spurs. We'll see how long that lasts. It's Bournemouth then away at the end of September, and then obviously before the next international break, Man City at home, which is going to be another. You'd be hoping to get something like that, or you don't want City too far ahead at that stage. Your man of the match, Eamonn from Sunday, so.
Oh, Martinelli.
Yeah.
And you know what? I was very interested what Conor was saying about Nketiah because he played like a real number 9. Eddie Nketiah ran himself into the ground on Sunday on a very, very hot day. And I'd be tempted to give it to him, but Martinelli, because he actually tortured them down on that left-hand side. He did. So Martinelli for me.
Conor, your man of the match from Sunday?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with Martinelli. The other one I give it out for is Saliba. Martial had nothing. I think he had one shot in the game, but Saliba just had in his pocket. And, for that sort of, Martial kept dropping to the halfway line trying to get layoffs and just Saliba climbing all over. And I just thought it didn't really give away many free kicks, maybe 1 or 2, but in the main, just really tough but fair. And then his positional sense, for whatever, there was so many times where it felt like maybe a chance for United. No, swept. He was just there, and he's never sprinting. He says, I'll just casually cruise into that position and get the ball. Yeah. Brilliant. I mean, he really could play for any team.
Him and
that's one thing I meant to say, John. One thing I meant to say in my match analysis that Conor just prompted me on was what I was also delighted to see was that Saliba and Gabriel had less touches of the ball before they moved it on because there was more options available to them. Like I counted against Fulham at one stage, Saliba took 13 touches of the ball before he passed it. It was all 3 touch and move. And I think he's really he's really in his pomp when he's doing that. His anticipatory senses are brilliant, but he's very, very good on the ball as well, Conor, you know?
Yeah. As well, before we move on to the transfer roundup, sorry, I know you've been commentating on a lot of the first 4 matches of the season, Conor, around the Premier League. I think this weekend, though, you have to give it a big shout out to our very own Evan Ferguson. Sadly, he's going to be missing the 2 Ireland internationals, which is our luck as usual. But yeah, he is some talent at Conor, isn't he? I really love watching him.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I just can't wait to see more of him in green. And he just seems such a nice guy. I mean, we met him, Jonathan, the night we met in Dublin. You know, he's such a lovely fella, and you just love to see a guy like him doing well. And then you still think, you know, just by being there, just by playing in the Premier League is so good. But he's, you know, he's not just scoring, he's getting the hat tricks. It's incredible. You know, long may it continue now. And as I said, we definitely could have done with him this week. But it's, you know, at the end of the day, I'm always very realistic on this, and I think it's a occupational hazard from you know, this being my job rather than being a fan of these games. Is, you know, I kind of put the level head on maybe too much at times. But my thing is, I don't think Evan Ferguson is going to create it for us in the next year or two. Realistically, you know, it's too much to ask of an 18-year-old. But I'm looking forward to, you know, 3-4 years from now, the next World Cup, the next Euros after that. That's when he should be the kind of player who, you know, that's what we need. You know, if you see other countries, you know, you look at Serbia or someone, they've got Mitrovic and he just scores loads of goals, and that's enough. It gets them to tournaments and stuff. So that's we just want to be at the tournaments, you know.
Yeah, no disrespect as well to Brighton. Like they're becoming a big club in their own right. But as you said, Conor, his progression will probably be more in the next 2 or 3 years. Can you see him going to, you know, say a top 4 Premier League team?
Yeah, look, if he keeps up the goals, he will. But I'm delighted he is where he is at the moment. Brighton are a brilliant club to be at, and he will get game time. And he, you know, you don't want him being a sub at Liverpool or something. That would be a waste, you know, for he's got to be somewhere that he's going to. And Brighton are unbelievable. You look back, I did think about this in the BBC last week. The last 4 seasons, every season they get their best 2 or 3 players and they sell them every single season. And they just respawn, and these guys you've never heard of come in, and they're unbelievable. Like, I never heard of shut up, and he's now one of my favorite players to watch. And then Casido, they lose him, and also like they wouldn't take Casido back now. Like, no way, he wouldn't get in the team anymore. It's just nuts the way it works out for them. But they're great to watch, and then even, you know, Shrew, bringing in people like James Miller, what a smart bit of business that is, you know, for these young kids to feed off.
Yeah, I was just thinking that actually. But they're great to watch. They were playing Newcastle Saturday. To bring in a fella like him and Adam Lallana a few years back, it's very clever, isn't it? Just to have an experienced head. Yeah, 100%.
I think, look, hope at least another 2 years of Brighton, you know, get going, get playing, get you know, become a man as such, and then look, of course, if he's good enough, but look, and you know, you're not saying he's not listening to us now, but like, it's not that you're putting pressure on him, but you sort of see him being one of these Jude Bellingham types. You know, why not? Why couldn't he go and play for Bayern Munich or play for whoever? So, and I appreciate that is getting ahead of ourselves, but you know, why not?
Like with Haaland scoring a hat-trick and Son at the weekend, he's a real Dubliner, you know. He says it's nice company to be in, you know. He's so laid back, you know. It's gas, you know. He takes it on in his stride.
You see, like, we've seen hundreds and hundreds of footballers who have the talent, but this boy seems to have the attitude as well.
Yeah,
you know?
the attitude.
And that's like when he's still at a make or break age. Let's not expect too much. He's still at a make or break age. I don't know whether you remember that lad that played for Liverpool. Was it James Miller? Neil Miller. Neil Miller.
He scored a cracker against us, yeah.
I mean, but at 18 it was all happening for him. At 19 it was gone. You know, we've got to be patient with Evan. He seems to have the right attitude. He certainly has some good stock. As a legal man, I'd know that, right? His father's unbelievable in terms of the right stuff, you know. But we need to be patient with him, and you know, the Premier League is such a money go round whirlpool now that, you know, somebody will be in from. I think Conor's right. You'd like to see him see it out with Brighton for another couple of years and become and grow into a man, and then the world's at his feet. And why shouldn't he do? Why shouldn't he do what he needs to do? I mean, if you think, I know Robbie got a lot of stick for Robbie went to Inter Milan at 20 years of age.
But that was his dream, Eamonn. He had many dreams. Everything
was his dream. But people underestimate how good Robbie was.
He was brilliant player.
He's a brilliant player because, like, Evan is like Robbie in terms of his intelligence in the channels that he runs into, but he's a stronger boy. He's frightening. He's like Duncan Ferguson and Robbie Keane molded in together, you know. And
he's so well built. Yeah.
If you're making a machine for players you'd like to play up top, I think he fits the bill, you know. Yeah. I
like the way he said to Kelly Dalglish at the end of the match. He was saying his father tried to play the game. You know, I don't know whether that was a compliment or an insult. No. But he's funny as well, though, isn't he, Conor? Like, and even at the lives, he takes it so. He's so grown up, isn't he? Like he's a matured, he's a man rather than his age, you know. But he's some talent. I'd love Arsenal to sign him, but I think, I think he will play for a big team. You know, either not in the Premier League. Europe could do him the world of good as well, but the future's looking bright, and as usual, a fucking knee injury.
Brighton are in the Europa League this season. You know, I think one of their first games. All that experience that's perfect. That's exactly what he needs now.
They're playing Ajax, aren't they, Conor, in the Europa League group stage?
Ajax, yeah. So Ajax going to Marseille. That's exactly that next step he's ready to take. Absolutely, yeah. And
he's like he takes every game as it comes as well, doesn't he? Like he's into the challenge, isn't he? Like he loves a new challenge, and like he seems to be a nightmare for defenders because he keeps pinning off them. You know, it's just watching his movement is brilliant. You know, it really is. Yes, it's lick your lips time as an Ireland fan, but I would have loved to see him against France and Holland. I think he could have done damage. You know, I think he could have got a goal or two there, and it's where the goal will come now in those two games. I think those two games, being honest, I think Stephen Kenny probably be gone, hopefully, at the end of this tournament. Where are you listening?
Dublin Arsenal podcast. I mean, let's leave that, you know. All I'm going to say about that is...
You never know. A Thierry Henry handball could come our way this time.
All I'm going to say about that is, if you're building a house, you can build a house cheaper on top of an already existing house with dry rot, or you can burn it down and build again. That's all I say, right?
He normally comes out with a few other ones, but he's quiet tonight.
Guys, I gotta make a run, okay? But I'll come back in with you soon, and thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks, Conor. Thanks for coming along.
Thanks a million.
See you again soon. See you, Conor.